Like we got closer, and I think Shelley's doing great. I mean, I definitely, there's no complaints.
There's a lot of them.
Just
I'm
more,
used to
yeah,
the
just
weather, although I should be used to
more
it
of,
right now.
we gotta get there sooner than later.
I'm used to
hopefully,
it being
but
nice
with
and
everything.
Well,
90.
you know the history of it?
Points,
No,
so.
When the
that's,
city took it over,
Alabama.
the people who owned it kept.
I was born and
Really?
raised.
How long were you back now?
because I used to live.
They have like
I
a
moved
30-year
here
rental
in
agreement.
2012.
That's almost,
Yeah.
it's going
You were only
to,
10 at the time.
it's going to
Yeah. Pretty close.
But you remember,
I remember.
expire, thank you,
Yeah.
expire pretty soon here. And then we'll be able to get the rents off of
Well,
those.
that's significant.
It is significant.
I grew up in that house where the Kubota thing was at. That was our house growing up,
Sure.
so very familiar with the airport.
Good.
And often in summertime,
Oh, yeah.
earn some extra money. We'd go out there and hang out and buy candy and wait for a pilot to be willing to pick us up. And, yeah, I earned $10. He'd take us for, it happened quite a bit, so it was nice. I got fond memories of it.
Yeah, the lady who actually owns it lives in Australia, and she comes back here from time to time. And I actually met with her to see if we could buy her out. She's a very keen businesswoman.
So she's not about to give it up for, yeah, 'cause I remember being private growing up all the time.
Yeah. Norma Jean called, she's sick.
okay. All right. And Stacy's gone. Right?
Yes.
Hello.
We're still 6 tomorrow, right, for the urban renewal at 6 and then budget?
Yeah, her renewal should be super fast.
Okay. I was gonna say. Yes, there was one of us. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. That was great.
Yeah, are you feeling better?
Yes, love it. It was mostly annoying, but I just didn't want to get anything.
Thank you.
That was perfect. Still with them. Not worried about.
I'm glad you're feeling better.
Hello, hello.
Good night, good evening,
Good evening.
good evening.
For a split second, I thought the pianist Dick Hyman was going to be performing songs from 1924.
It does look like that, yeah.
Like, oh, that's cool. He's great. Chili powder.
So we got official notice from FEMA today that we are eligible for reimbursement from the ice storm.
Oh.
I saw that in your report.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. 67,000.
Yeah, 67, 68, right around there,
Awesome.
out of the 90,000.
2/3 of it, right? Yeah,
That's great.
a little over.
And thank you for getting me those minutes so fast.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank Curtis. That's where I got them from.
Getting busy chewing a pencil.
That's a pretty quick response from FEMA.
Oh, so too.
If you go to fast
That doesn't mean we're gonna get it next month or the month after, but we're eligible.
6 years from now. We'll get it.
Yeah. It wasn't a good sign when I clicked on the link and the link went nowhere.
Oh,
It's federal government for you. That's exactly where they want you to go.
And I think we got the splash pad painted.
I saw somebody out there painting blue.
I think they painted it blue and green.
Okay,
I haven't been out there to look.
yeah, I saw it. Must have been Friday, 'cause nobody would have been doing it on Saturday. Yeah,
But now it's got a cure. And then we can put all the doodads up.
yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, welcome to the Creswell City Council meeting, work session for May 20th, 2024. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for coming tonight to our work session. We have two counselors who are absent this evening, both with excused absences. We received tonight at our table here, just to show you all, a nice invitation. Dick Hyman was born in 1924 and turns 100 years old. There's a birthday celebration for him Saturday, May 25th from 11 to 1 at the Creswell Airport at the EAA building with a PowerPoint presentation that will showcase his military service at 12 o'clock noon. And Dick was a member of our city council several years ago. You may not have known that. So if you are free, Saturday, head out to the airport, to the EAA building, and you can celebrate Dick's 100th birthday. We start tonight with our reports from our committees. So first of all, administration and finance. Councilor Castillo, is there a report?
Somewhat. Just want to take a second just to remind everyone that it is time, the judge evaluation time. If you've already done so, awesome. If you need to make it up, you contact Caitlin, and just so it's on your radar. That's it.
Okay. Public Safety Committee, Councilor Smith.
We have no report tonight, but we're meeting May 28th at 5:30. So if anybody wants to come, put their 2 cents in, we'll be happy to take it.
Okay.
Did we change that to June 6th first? Or?
I think so.
Oh, May 28th.
I think there
Oh,
was somebody
this
that
next
couldn't make it
Thursday?
on the
That would ask
28th.
me.
So we bumped it
in
next week.
Chicago next week.
Okay. June 6th then, I guess.
I think so.
June 6th.
At
Public
5:30.
Safety, 5:30 p.m. Transportation and Public Works Committee.
So there's no official report, other than, this is again your notice that I'm gonna schedule that meeting to talk about the intersection, or the crosswalk on A Street. I think it's at 8th Street. So we'll be talking about that. Things have been very busy at my work, and so I haven't had a chance to pull that meeting together, but it's coming.
And this is the meeting on,
So the Safe Routes to
Safe
School
Routes to
recommendation to at least investigate whether or not to reinstall that crosswalk on A Street that goes essentially from 8th to right to the elementary school.
that will be a meeting for your committee. Okay,
Yep.
wonderful. Thank you. Parks and Tree Advisory Board, Councilor Osborne is not here. Manager Amber, do you have any report on Parks and Trees?
Second Street is, or excuse me, right, Robinette Hughes Park is coming along, and I think it's had the splash pad painted, and so it needs to cure for a little bit, and then we'll be able to bring out all the fun things to play with. So it's getting sunny, and it looks like it's doing great. The committee is also working on, and I'm sorry, I meant to bring the tree list is completed. It's very nice. I'll make sure we have it at the next work session. Working on a pollinator garden. Public Works has broken ground out there. If you wonder what's going on out at the Garden Lake Park, that's what's going on. I also found that there's a possibility of a $2,000 to $5,000 grant that might be just the right size for some of the signage and things that need to go in there. So I think we're going to apply for that. Other than that, they're working at all the parks, the mowing, trimming, weeding. I can't think of any other special projects at this time. So.
Thank you. All right, Airport Commission, Councilor Castillo.
No report tonight, Mayor?
Okay, LCOG, that's me, no report. Lane Act, Councilor Shelley.
Always a report from Lane Act. So Lane Act met on May 8th. And so a couple of things that were on our agenda that we talked about. So we met the ODOT Region 2 manager. Her name is Savannah Crawford. It was really hard to hear her audio, so she had some really important information to share. And unfortunately, we're going to need to invite her back to be able to share that so that we can all hear it. We might do the next meeting in person so that audio difficulties get minimized. And so she was there to provide just an introduction of herself and the role that she plays, provide the presentation about that ODOT funding, so that maintenance need that we talked about last month, and then also just offer a little bit of perspective on the acts. But again, it's very difficult to hear. So we will be sharing that information later. If you are interested in just looking at the slide deck about the information, I can certainly share that with you, so that you know kind of the funding gap that is coming up and that we'll need to address. And then we also talked a little bit about the Lane Act, so the transportation funding priorities, so that we're able to talk about that with the Joint Commission on Transportation in July. And so I was able to share all of our feedback from the last time we met about what our top priorities are. And then we got a little bit of information about the Connect Oregon application process. So it's a competitive grant process. And so on July 10th, there will be what's called a Super Act meeting. And so the chair and the vice chair will go essentially to represent, will represent all of the acts and help decide some funding pieces to that. And so that'll be happening. And then we ran out of time. So a couple of big dates coming up. So like I said, July 10th, there's that Super Act to talk about the Connect Oregon grants. The Joint Commission on Transportation is meeting on July 17th. And that is, I believe, somewhere in Eugene. We haven't had the exact the location has not yet been set. I do know that they will be touring one project. So I'm going to advocate to come see the jog. So we'll see if that happens. And then the OTC, so the Oregon Transportation Commission, is meeting on August 1st over in Florence. And so again, we don't have the exact agenda for that yet, but I anticipate that I'll be headed over to Florence to represent the act to the OTC. And I think that's it.
Well, thank you for your representation of Creswell.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we move to our presentations, and our first presentation tonight comes from Sanapac, and we have Chris here. So,
Very nice. Just want me, can you hear me from here?
oh, you have a microphone on you.
Built in.
Built in. Why don't we have you come and either sit at the table with us or stand over here?
Whichever you
You
like.
can sit right down there next to Manager Amberg.
I'm Chris Card, District Manager of Sanapac. I appreciate you putting us on the agenda. We're going to talk through the annual rate adjustment that we typically have. If you remember, we negotiated an addendum to the contract, and last year the CPI index was 8.15. We agreed on a 5% at that time. And then this year, July 1st of 2024, it's an automatic 5%. The CPI came in at 4.21, so if you add the 2 years together, the city's better by almost 2.5%, right? So all that's good. I do kind of want to walk through at Sanapac our cost expenses. Last year with the really, really high CPI index, three of our biggest categories, labor, we were at 8.9% in 23. We're actually higher in '24, 11.7, that being due to, we negotiated a 3-year extension with the local 206 that our mechanics, drivers, and weld shop belong to. So that's a positive. And then parts and materials, dealing with our trucks and shop. In '23, we're probably over 25% year-over-year increase. We're still seeing a 14-18% increase this year from last year. So it has gone down, but it's still very elevated in an area that is a lot of expense for us. And then, you know, the tires, everybody has to have tires. And year in '23, we're probably north of 28% year-over-year increase from our vendors. And we're seeing anywhere between 8 and 12, depending on the purchase of tires and labor that goes into that as well. So we are still seeing, you know, inflated costs that aren't what they were in '23, but just to be completely honest, and coming in at the 5 or the 4.21 CPI in a lot of areas, we're outpacing that. But that's kind of what I had. I don't think I sent the city the updated price schedule, and I'll give you a copy tonight if you want, and I'll email it to you tomorrow.
We have a copy machine here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can give you, I have a bunch of copies, I'll give everybody one. And then
Oh.
this is just,
Okay.
this is the pricing that we had last year with the 5% increase that would be due, or start in July 1st. That's what that way. It's just more for information, it's the same price sheet as what we've given in the past. This is just a version, and I don't remember if Creswell, do you post your rates online in Creswell or not? I don't remember. Some cities do, some
Manager Amber said
don't.
no.
Okay.
It's the same as what you've got.
Yes, sir.
One needs to go to cable.
I'm sorry, and I'll email this to y'all tomorrow as well, so you have that version of it as well. But this is something you can reference, and this is, you know, when they call into the Santa Pac to get any one of these services, these are the rates that will be charged. Yes, sir?
Could you include your rate increases that you spoke of that are affecting your Santa Pac? The tires, the...
In an email to me?
Yes.
Oh, yes, sir. I can definitely do that. Just like in the body of the email and just do it as an attachment? Yeah, I can definitely do that.
However,
So this is specifically for Creswell?
This is Creswell pricing, yes, sir.
Creswell pricing, okay.
Have you seen any kind of increase at the landfill?
We all know the great IMRF story that we have. With that vote that allowed them to negotiate a contract that isn't done yet, they also passed a 11%, it's an 8% plus CPI that will be effective July 1st, 2024, and then also again in 2025. That was passed with the county commissioners vote back in, I believe, December.
And that's the same whether you use the landfill or a transfer station or the IMRF that's gonna be cutting it? Because they
no.
haven't billed that for a while.
It'll be a couple of years, but with the rate increase, and this is where we challenge it because there's other landfills. We did an environmental study of taking waste from the Springfield area to EcoSort, our transfer station, offloading it out of our trucks into transfer trucks and hauling it to Dry Creek landfill, which is in Medford, Texas, which is one of our landfills. It's actually with the gas recovery system that with the meetings, it's going to elevate immensely over the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. And it's, you know, we have the contract itself, Santa Pac has challenges with. I don't think anybody at this table would buy a house or anything with the type of contract that they have. And it just seems very one-sided, and if it fails, you know, the county, the members of the residents of the county have to pay for it, right? Because all the BHS is kind of one-sided. If it fails, the county owes every single penny in that contract. That's $150 million. So we are opposing it. There's a lot of irons in the fire with them. We're doing our due diligence to talk and be professional in our opinion of what we could do, but we would like to have the ability to take waste from areas that didn't have an IGA with the county to a landfill, maybe to control costs better than they can. So obviously there's a lot of political and conversations to have in the future with this and see what they do, because the vote has been passed, they have not signed a contract, and I don't know, in the last conversations that we've had, our legal team has had with them, I don't know how close they are to that, but we do know that a 11% price increase is gonna go in for the next 2 July dates.
So, questions that you have for Chris?
So if they don't sign a contract, do we have a chance of that not going through?
Yeah, if they don't sign a contract,
If they can't work that contract out, hopefully this whole project will dissolve and not.
it would fail, because the county's not gonna, I mean, I'm not speaking for the county at all by
Obviously,
saying this, but
yeah.
they're not gonna put up $150 million for this project. They're putting up $50 million, and VHS is putting up 100, and then all the guarantees are in that contract, and if it wasn't met, the county would be on the hook for all the money, so. Pretty risky, honestly.
Yeah.
For tax and benefit that they charge, it's a system benefit fee, and it's roughly almost half of the price per ton, and till this day, we don't know where they spend that money on in the county. They say, I think it funds, I mean, my personal opinion, they fund all the transfer stations, because they've made it publicly that the only transfer station that makes money is the one in Springfield and Eugene there on 17th Street, and the rest of them have to be subsidized by something, and all of the tons that we take there, almost half of that rate, it goes to their fee, and we've asked for clarification of where it goes to, and we have never received an answer on that, so that's another issue we have with paying the system benefit fee and what's actually coming back to, the residents of Creswell, what other cities just meant.
Sorry. Is Northwest Natural Gas bringing a suit against the county because of their switch from investing in the natural gas at the landfill to switching to the IMERF?
Yes, I can't really speak on
Right.
that. Aaron Donnelly, by the way, says hi. The mayor and I had probably 2-3 conversations with him because he feels bad that he's not here, but he's free. He doesn't have to be. But I call him the mayor.
Well, Aaron has a whole
of
different role
Creswell.
now with Santapecker, right?
Do what?
He has a different role.
He does. He works for the entire West region for us. Does an absolute great job still. Is in the mix at Santapac a lot, which I like because I've learned a lot from him being here at Santapac for a year and a half. And yeah, he's a great asset to have, but he is a super, super busy man. So he says hi, misses all y'all, and I'll make sure that I'll say, they don't, Aaron who, they said, just to give him a little jab, that, no, he misses y'all, and he would be, if it wasn't for a softball game night, he'd probably be sitting here, so.
So what does MHP remind me? I see under residential rates, 35 gallon, 21.65, and underneath each one, MHP.
You know what, I don't know what that stands for. It's a 21-gallon card.
Right, and I was looking on here for the rate for the recycling of yard debris. Am I missing that one, or is that what the MHP stands for?
Now you have residential rates, recycle.
And there's
bins,
commercial.
Commercial,
Multifamily housing is in commercial, right?
yes. I'll check on that. I don't see where yard debris is in here. I will figure that out before I send this over to you. Nice catch.
And then if you can find out what MHP stands for,
Will do.
because that's a lower price on all the categories that I can tell, but again, I don't know what that means.
Unless it's a monthly rate. I will double check on that.
Or maybe a senior rate?
I don't think there is senior rates, otherwise I'd qualify.
We don't do a low-income rate or anything like that?
I believe we talked about that when we did the addendum, but we don't know.
Is the new law, the new system that they're putting in place statewide for handling recyclables, is that going to impact our multifamily housing units in a surprising way that we don't know about? In that we have to provide space for recycling the various
It may have.
elements, and we don't provide that space?
It may turn to that, yeah. It's more,
Does it have to be on site, do you know?
the cities have to provide like with the drop-off stations, and that's for usually the smaller cities. Creswell wouldn't be in that. I can double check on that, but a lot of times with this, there will be extra carts and extra containers that would have to be added.
I'm thinking on site.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be more footprint for trash areas.
Correct.
In our multifamily residential areas.
I can get you that answer. Aaron
that
is
might
the
hit
guru
our-
on that.
Our requirements, it might impact our requirements coming down the road.
So Michelle, when you speak about our multifamily, are you referring to apartment units? Okay.
Apartments, fourplexes, places.
Okay.
This new law is trying to be as accessible as possible to everyone. The idea is to make it recycling very easy. And so right now you live in an apartment, you go down and you throw your stuff in the trash. There's no place to put glass, there's no place to put batteries, there's no place to put paper. There's nothing that, singles that out. But I think that there is a requirement in this new law that those facilities be provided in those spaces. So even if you have a fourplex, if you have 4 different people, they're going to have the 3 different trash cans, or the whatever sorting methodology the waste hauler puts forward. So it's easier for family residential because they can give us a container for everything that needs to be sorted, or it can be not sorted, it can be commingled. But you can't really commingle apartments, that's just too dirty. That's way too dirty. You have to have some way to sort maybe the food waste out of the paper waste and things like that.
Yeah, if we went individual, like if you had a food waste bin, battery specialized stuff, I think it's gonna go more towards like consolidated drop-off areas. I mean, the county EcoSort's looking at it. I know, is it St. Vinny's looking at doing a lot of drop-off stuff,
That'd be
like
great.
the batteries. We've talked about doing a battery pickup, household battery pickup. It's more in the education, because if you don't take the ends of the battery and put them in a baggie, we can't accept them, because we just, that's why we're trying to get it out of recycling. Our company has lost a lot of trucks due to truck fires with batteries. That's one of the biggest causes of, especially recycle fires, truck fires, is batteries, lithium batteries and other batteries in the recycling, because people think it's recycling, so they just put it in with their paper and cardboard, and it arcs, and here we go. And we got truck fires, so.
2025 is when all this comes out?
Yes, ma'am.
June of 2025? We're going to see a big change in recycling.
In other places I've been where we've added carts to apartment complexes for the recycling, if it's a commingle, you're right, it's trash in, trash out, kind of like anything else. It's very difficult to monitor that at multifamily apartment complexes. But if it was just a single commingle, it's really kind of, I'm sorry, but some people are just lazy. If we're walking past and my trash is 10 more feet and my recycle's right here and no one's looking, we get a lot of trash in our recycling because of that. But we'll keep you abreast on that as we work through this and figure out what exactly our requirements are going to be for individual homes and apartment complexes.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully it won't expand the footprint too big.
Thanks. I'm sure people would appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions for Chris? Thank you very
you.
much for coming
Appreciate
down. Well,
Cleanup went well. I didn't hear anything, out of the ordinary with the cleanup. John Thornton, our rollout supervisor, who actually celebrates 40 years at Santa Pac this Friday. Astronomical right there.
Yeah.
He met with everybody and said everything went really well. So hopefully you all think the same thing, and we continue that, because that's a big event in all our cities. And I know we bring out pizza and drinks and all that for the folks that help, and we appreciate the efforts that you guys and gals put into that as well.
It was a very wet day.
Yeah, we had Creswell and Veneta on the same day, and all the pictures that I saw were a lot of soaked people and a lower turnout than normal, so.
Actually, we had a pretty good one.
Do it right
We
here?
had more this year than last year.
Yeah, the Veneta one is fairly large too, and it was pretty dead. Springfield, they do theirs different. They actually come to EcoSort and we kind of give them the facility for the day. Everybody drives through, and it was, we don't have all the tonnages reports back yet, but it was, last year at 8 o'clock when it opened, it was, half a mile long, cars and trailers waiting to get in. This year there was probably about 40 or 50, and then after that it was just kind of slow and steady, and then it died off towards 3 o'clock. So be interesting to see the tonnage on that. So
Okay, well, thank
I
you very
appreciate your
much.
time, and I'll get those answers back to you tomorrow, and then the addition comments into that with the price sheet.
That'd be great, thank you.
Awesome.
All right, thank you very
Thank y'all.
much.
Y'all have a good evening.
All right, thank you. All right, now we have our audit report. And we have Paul here.
I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back, yeah. So first of all, I have to say, my wife and I are big fans of Toxic. And you guys have a Toxic, and we've actually eaten there, so we've eaten in every Toxic that's ever existed, even closed ones so far. As one of our, they actually know my wife, because they bank with, she runs an Umpqua, manages Umpqua Bank, so she knows the people that own the franchise. So when we walk in the store, they say hi to her, and they go, "Who's this guy?" So speaking of, that made me think of a joke. The mayor wanted me to tell a joke. These guys are gonna take my place as I retire. They got some issues facing them. One, neither one of them smoke cheese.
Yeah.
Two, none of them tell jokes, so that's a problem.
I don't know if this is all right.
So this lady goes to the doctor. The doctor says, "You got about 6 months to live." And the lady says, "Really, doctor? There's nothing I can do about it?" And the doctor thinks for a while and says, "Maybe you should marry an accountant." She says, "Well, I'll live longer?" And he said, "No, but you'll sure feel like you live longer." All right, many of you have heard this before. I think there's at least one new council member, yep. The audit report. Even though we draft your audited financial statements, that the financial statements are management's responsibilities. In our world, that's what's called a non-audit function. And as independent standards get tougher and tougher, because independent auditors are supposed to be independent, now we have to get a letter from, I'm actually going to call him Jim. I've called him James for so many years, I can try to call him Jim. And, he worked for me for 10 years, so I know he knows what's going on. He was an auditor with me for a long time. I can tell you some fun stories about audit trouble someday if you really want to hear them. There's no significant findings in the audit. Timing's a little later than we'd like it, but between sicknesses on both sides of your house, in here and at my office, in fact, Cody, the guy who's going to take my place as the partner on the job I mentioned earlier, last 6 weeks, I think he's been out sick, 4 of them. So, just stuff going around, so. No corrected or uncorrected dismissed statements. I don't think we had any disagreements with management. Now that James is, I call him James, no longer a Dallas Cowboys fan, I don't think we have any more disagreements with management. Probably didn't know he used to be a Cowboys fan. As far as I know, management hasn't consulted with any other auditors, and we have no other findings or issues. But I don't think there's a slide in here, but yes, there is, right there. So in the state of Oregon, now, some of you have heard me say this before, my 42 years of doing this now, I've audited in Idaho, Nevada, California, and Oregon. And Oregon is the only state that I've audited in that has what are called required auditing standards for local governments. All the other states, any CPA can do it. In Oregon and coincidentally, New Jersey, the only 2 states that require a special license to audit governments. And it used to be you couldn't pump your gas in Oregon and New Jersey either, but we changed here. I don't know if New Jersey's doing it. But part of those standards require us to look at certain things. One is deposit public funds. You can put your money in any bank or credit union you want to, up to $250,000. After that limit, the FDIC limit, if you have it in a financial institution, it has to be on a list that the treasurer's office puts out, approved financial institutions. And we test that every year when we come to do an audit. There's a debt limit, it's based on a percentage of real market value in the city, and your general obligation bonds can't exceed that limit. We test that every year. We do some budget testing, make sure you published it properly, make sure it actually adds correctly and everything balances like it's supposed to. We're required by state statute to look at your insurance certificate every year just to make sure you have insurance. Highway revenue testing, the money you get from the state, from the gas tax they charge, can only be spent on certain things, and we test that to make sure you don't spend it on things you're not supposed to spend it on. There's laws about investment in public funds. Governments can't invest in everything that's out there in the market. It's very restrictive. Budget expenditures, we make sure if you have a violation, you're over exceeding an appropriation, you'll see that in the financial statements. And I know you feel real good about this. Congratulations on, this is your first single audit, right, James? This is your first, second?
Second.
Second? It's been 2 years already?
Got several
With
single
COVID,
audits.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
the COVID money
Yeah, spent a lot of money being sick.
That's right.
Lately.
on airport
On the
airport grants.
I can't remember you doing it last year, but that's all right. I must be getting old. That's why I'm getting ready to retire. So just real quick, Single Audit Act. Again, I was a young auditor when they passed it. It sets certain requirements around, if you get a certain amount of federal money, right now it's $750,000. If you spend that much, you're subject to Single Audit Act requirements. As I was telling Michelle earlier, just a classic example of single audit. As a regular audit, I can use professional judgment and say, okay, this is off, but it looks like they did everything okay, and we're not going to worry about that. We had a city client we were doing a single audit on, and they emailed the guy at, I want to say, Department of Transportation, I could be making that up, said, we're done with the contract, send us all our money. He sent the money back, got the money in the city accounts. We show up to do the audit, and the Single Audit Act says you have to fill out this form to get all your money. I mean, if I was just a regular audit, not subject to single audit, I said, okay, transaction looks good. Single audit, that form was not filled out, that became a finding for the Single Audit Act. So it's set by the federal government, it's a law Congress passed, so that probably explains a lot of what goes on with the Single Audit Act, so it's very specific. And so some things we have to be very picky on, that, whereas on a regular audit, we have some auditor judgment we can use, so.
So what prompts a single audit? So this is when you're auditing a single item?
Well, the reason it's called single audit is way back when I was a young auditor, they used to send auditors out, our contract to CPA firm, and I could go out, and I did this my first couple of years. Like HUD would hire us to go look at somebody, then a couple of months later, Transportation would ask us to go look at them again. So back in 1983, they passed the Single Audit Act and said, we're now going to put all the responsibility for this, instead of hiring a CPA firm, or if you're within a federal office, we'll send the federal auditors out there. And when the accountant does the audit, back then the threshold was $150,000, but now it's $750,000. They have to test certain federal programs. So it's not like, so when they used the term single audit, they took all these, we're sending out 3 or 4 teams to do an audit, and we're just pushing it into one audit now. So, and we do what we call a risk assessment on what programs are considered high risk, low risk. There's a lot of calculation in that. COVID money was considered high risk by law, so that's why we looked at a lot of COVID money over the last couple of years. And if you spend more than $750,000 of federal money, you're subject to the single audit.
Okay.
That's the threshold, $750,000.
And that can be from airport fund, that can be from any.
All federal money combined, all
All
federal
federal
money the
money.
city gets it. And if the state passes through to you federal money, and they call you a pass-through, a subrecipient, that counts too. So you gotta track all that. And James knows the way to track, make sure the state, in their language, will say this is pass-through, and there's certain language that'll be in a state contract that tell you if it's subject to the single audit. A lot more than you wanted to know about, all right? This is your change in general fund balance over the last several years. And this is, again, a slide many of you know I've come up with on my 40 years of doing this. There's no requirement for this slide, but this shows your days in fund balance at the end of the year. So at the end of June 30, if you couldn't get any more revenue in or anything, the city could have lasted for 291 days, which is a very good place to be. You don't have a cash flow problem at all.
So is this one reason why we've tried to bring down our ending fund balance over the last few years so that we're using our funds? Because we were at 396 just 3-4 years
Yeah.
ago.
The reason why we have money is to do programs, not to save it. And so what we try to do is use our expertise to determine how much money is a safe buffer so that we can get the maximum amount of money back into the community. So that's why you've seen this come down a bit, is because we determined we don't need a year's worth of ending fund balance. We need to get that into the hands of the community, either through services or projects or things that we do. So that's why that line is changed. Unfortunately, a lot of cities don't have this.
No, a lot of governments don't have this.
Yeah, a rule of thumb that I was taught is that you should have enough in your ending fund balance to get from the 1st of July to the end of November and fully funded.
Yep.
Because that's when your tax money
That's when the
comes.
tax money comes in.
So there have been cities that have ended with a zero fund balance and have borrowed the money for those first 4 months. And that was their practice. And that's very expensive money when you do it that way. We make sure that we have enough carryover that will be safe.
You can do, as a government, you can do what's called a TAN, tax anticipation note. If the government doesn't have enough cash, you can say, okay, we're borrowing on the taxes we're gonna collect next fall. You go to a bank and get that, and then you pay interest on the money and everything, but I've seen that before.
Now, this is a good chart.
Yeah. Yeah, our neighbors to the south are struggling. They got their budget and they have a zero ending fund balance in some of their funds.
Really? Wow. Yes, Mr. Jim?
I might add that even though we budget to try to spend down fund balance, we've been unsuccessful in a positive way because we've gotten some grant monies to help us with those expenditures after the fact. We'll have agencies say, well, we want to give you some money. A recent prime example would be, we just got a $5,000 grant to help with our server replacement to go to the cloud. And CIS said, hey, we'll give you $5,000 for doing something that's going to improve your security. And so that's just one example, but we've had several over the years. Even though we're trying to spend down some of that fund balance during the year, we get happy surprises from local and federal agencies that say they want to give us some money.
Any other questions?
Kind of, sorry, man, sorry. So when you're working on the budget, Jim, and so how do you predict that you want to be, so for 2025, we were going to be at, 250 days or how does that work?
For spending down, we're looking at things that are a one-time expenditure. Projects that are in the council's strategic plan that need to be done, and it's a one-time expenditure.
And if you look in the budget, there's an estimated ending fund balance.
I see.
So that's calculated as part of the revenues and expenditures.
Okay.
And it's already, we're not guessing, it's written right
And
there.
that says how many days that we would go?
Now, Jim knows approximately how much we spend those first 4 months of the year and can do the math and.
It's easy to do the math. I do it by taking your expenses for the year, dividing by 365, and then take that against fund balance. It's pretty
Yeah.
easy math. But I am an accountant, so math is,
Yeah. The city's fiscal policy is 30%, which is.
We're meeting that easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Plus back in the 2013, 14, 15 in that area, we set some policies, financial policies for how much ending balance we needed in some various funds.
And those policies are listed in the back of the budget,
Yeah.
those,
Yep,
They're
very
all
back
there.
of the budget,
yeah.
so.
I got a question kind of leading towards that. Has there ever been a refund to taxpayers to the city? Is there anything, like Oregon does a kicker?
No.
Tax rebates, no property taxes?
I've been doing this 40 years, I've never seen a local government do that. I don't know if they have the power to do that, quite frankly. That'd probably be a legal question, or an accounting question, so.
Well, I know that 1 year, you talk about extra money that comes in. I know 1 year Oak Ridge was given $1 million, and the people who granted it said, ask your people how they want it spent, and the people wanted it back in their pockets. So they got like a few dollars each. I do know that they refunded that money to the public. But again, that was a grant that was given to them. It didn't go into any projects or anything, it went into pockets. Otherwise, yeah, I think there's some on the East Coast that is able to do that because they have a very different way that they don't have caps on their funding, and they can go up 1 year and go down the next, and so that's kind of how they refund the money. Plus, they have schools in their budget, so a city might be in charge of the school budget as well. So it can be pretty dynamic in other states, but not so much in Oregon. We're all struggling so much just to provide the services we have that any extra money goes into something.
Yeah, right now, local governments rely primarily on property taxes, where your increase is capped at 3%, maybe if you're lucky, 4% per year. And the inflation's been running 8, 9, whatever it's running. It's a struggle for a lot of places where property taxes is their primary source of revenue.
It's not so much a question, but I just did some very quick math, because I too love a spreadsheet. And so I just looked at the average of, kind of like what is the fund balance over the course of the last, 9 years. And the average fund balance is about 324. And so I think that's really good as we look at our 291 at this point in time. That means that we're doing really good work, I think, getting money back into the community, and that we have been pretty consistently doing that over the course of the last couple of years, or at least that's how I interpret that information.
Any other questions?
So next year, you might be hearing from Cody, I might be here again, so on the off chance that you won't hear from me again, I'll give the mayor a bonus joke here.
Yeah, you'll have to send us a joke.
There's an engineer, a doctor, an accountant arguing about what's the oldest profession. And the doctor says, well, the oldest profession is medicine, because God created Eve from Adam's rib. And the engineer says, well, before that, God organized the chaos. And then the accountant said, who do you think created the chaos? I hope I see you next year.
Thank you all very much. Okay, so now we move to discussion items, the Creswell Butte overlay, and that is Mr. Curtis.
Well, thank you, councilors, for giving me the time. Can I move this, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a bit of a tough act to follow. I don't have any jokes prepared this afternoon. Give me a second, I can think of one, but.
Oh, you just have so much fun with pigs and all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, we caught some pigs on one of our residents' property last week, so we had to let them know that that's not allowed. They were very cute pigs, but anyways. So in front of you, I'm wanting to present the Creswell Butte Protection Area Amendment. And so this is an amendment that Planning Commission supports to revise the boundary of the Creswell Butte Protection Area. And so within the comprehensive plan, and so again, the comprehensive plan is kind of my backbone document. Within that plan, the policy says the city should preserve views of the Creswell Butte, and the city should protect properties uphill and downhill from human impacts such as erosion, stormwater, and other causes of structural instability. And so Planning Commission and myself were not agreeing or disagreeing with the policy, we were following the policy, and we were revising how the development code implements the policy. And so in the development code, it says that buildings within the butte cannot be taller than 18 feet tall, so they have to be a one-story building, and manufactured home parks are also not allowed. And so those are kind of two of the items that come up in the code. And so this question came about because we have a developer who has a wetland on his property, and he is looking at building a home. And so this was part of the presentation I gave, I think, last year. The developer had to go through requirements with DSL, Army Corps of Engineers, DEQ, and in order to kind of mitigate his impact on the wetland, he had to build as small a footprint as possible. And so he came to my office and said, Curtis, I have to build a small footprint, can I build 2 stories? And I said, well, no, because you're in the protection area. And he said, well, the wetland is the lowest area around. And I said, Mr. Barrett, I agree with you, because categorically the wetland is the lowest point in a localized region, and that's where the water collects. And so I brought this issue up to Planning Commission, and we agreed to take a look at the Creswell Butte protection area and just kind of revisit the boundary and see if it made sense. And so I have a presentation with some photos, and this kind of mimics the path that we went with Planning Commission. And so during a meeting, it was the February session, we discussed changing the height of the homes within the Butte protection zone to make it so 2-story structures could be built. We talked about rearranging the boundary, and we couldn't come up with a consensus. And so we decided, let's form a subcommittee and walk the Butte and kind of get a sense of how tall the buildings are, where's the elevation, where could problems exist. And so we started at City Hall. And so the first picture is from the City Hall parking lot. The only building that's okay, let me make sure everyone's on the same page. Did you all have this? Okay. Got it, Mayor Strand? So that's a view from City Hall parking lot. It's the old schoolhouse is blocking the view of the Butte. And this is kind of the view that we see from most parts of Creswell. You can kind of see the top and see the trees. And so the next page is the view up Holbrook Lane. And there's a red line that signifies where the slopes start to pick up. And so in my non-geological trained opinion, this is the start of the Butte. Yep, go ahead.
On the, do we know how tall that old schoolhouse is from this picture? Because I think that's clearly taller than 18 feet.
Yeah.
Because 18 feet on a house is not very tall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's 23,
Okay.
kind of guessing.
So, along that same line, if we were going a little bit to the left, then this house right here, which is 2 stories, it looks like, would also be taller than 18 feet and block the vision.
Correct.
Okay.
And of course, it depends where you're standing. If you're right next to the house, you're obviously not going to see over it. And if you're a little bit further from the house, you can have a better line of sight and see over it. So yeah, Holbrook Lane, the red line kind of signifies where the slopes start to pick up. And that's also very close to the 580 contour line, so 580 feet, which I'll show you later, but it's kind of an important slope change. And then so at the 580 contour line, so at the red line on Holbrook, there's the old Creswell Christian School building. And so this building is pretty tall, and it's non-conforming per the Creswell Butte Code. So this is within the Butte overlay. And so height is measured from the midpoint of the roof line, and it's also measured from the top of the slope. And so when a building is built on a slope, it can actually be pretty tall on one side and relatively average on the other side. So like if you're looking at this photo and you're measuring the left side of the building, so the the uphill side of the building, it would measure a lot lower height than if you measure on the downhill side of the building. And so I think based on that measurement, it makes a lot of sense to restrict height once you have a slope involved, or else you do have buildings that are much larger than intended. Does that make sense?
You said it's measured to the top of the peak of the roof?
The midpoint of the roof.
Midpoint, okay.
So an A-frame house is measured very differently than like a Santa Fe Pueblo style house. And so the next slide, I'm standing on Kings Row, and you can see the top of the Christian school building that we were just looking at. And you can kind of tell that if it were 4 feet shorter, it would probably make for a better view of the butte. And then on the next page, I walked a little bit further down Kings Row, and you can see that the buildings kind of cascade up the slope, and you can actually see our water tanks at the top of the hill. And then one more page, a view of the butte from South 9th Street. Same kind of thing. You see the houses kind of, I'm going to use the word cascade, kind of up the hill again. And so it seems like the code is actually, it's working quite well. All the buildings are pretty uniform height. You can see up and down it.
Curtis?
Yep.
So there's a couple of buildings in this picture that are pretty tall. Are those all, one looks like it's a modular home, and to the left, kind of the round dome. Are those all single-story buildings that are just set up on the slope?
A lot of them are, well, they're 2-story buildings with more like a daylight basement. But
So they don't exceed the 18-foot.
I didn't measure all of them. I'm sure some of them do exceed 18 feet.
Yeah, this one, that one definitely does.
Yeah, I think that's actually a single-story mobile home set up there.
Yeah, I agree,
But the one here to the round one there
but that one's not,
made me wonder
yeah.
if that was larger. Because that slope's pretty steep there where you see the car park, and the houses to the left are mainly mobile or modular, whatever you call them.
There's probably about a 10-foot rise between these two.
Yep, there is.
So I think some of these homes are probably in the 20 to 23 foot range. When I'm thinking of the comprehensive plan policy, like do these buildings still preserve the view of the butte? I'm intended to say yes, they're okay, but anything taller than what's existing, I think that it would conflict with the comprehensive policy.
So, another question. If some of these buildings and the church, as you pointed out, definitely exceeded, why were they allowed in the first place?
Because they were built before the code was
Oh,
written.
okay, before we had that code. Okay.
Yeah. That's very common, so it's non-conforming. And so the next 2 photos are my attempt to show where the boundaries will be adjusted. And so the line of houses, so I'm looking west towards Kayla Marie Street. So we're looking at the back of the houses that are on Kayla Marie Street, and everything beyond that is being proposed to be removed from the boundary. And so what I was trying to show in this photo is that those houses are all downhill.
And you're saying everything beyond that?
Yes, so Kayla Marie Street is proposed to be the new boundary.
And that's on the maps you gave us.
Yeah, so it might help to find the staff report and findings of fact, and flip to the page that shows the contour lines. So figure 3. I can,
Higher lines and stuff,
so the 580 contour line is again where we thought that the steeps really started to make an impact. And it kind of aligns pretty well with the Kings Row alignment already. And so first let me back up to the photos. So So one photo is looking west towards Kayla Marie, and that's kind of the western side of what can be removed, or what is proposed to be removed. And then the next photo, so the last photo on the presentation, looking east towards 2nd Street and Highway 99, that's one of the properties that is proposed to be removed, but it's hard to take photos of all of them.
The Exhibit A, Figure 3, just the 580 contour line is the one in bold, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the Kayla Marie Street, there's another street on the back side of Kayla Marie going west before you get to Butte. So are these houses that we're seeing on the opposite side of Kayla Marie Street? Or is Kayla Marie Street the one that goes up the hill here that we see in this picture? Is that Kayla Marie Street?
You're looking at 9th
I
Street.
think this one is Caleb Marie.
Yeah, the one that's curved out.
The one that has no houses.
Yeah. This, I think this, where the houses are, is Caleb Marie.
So this is,
Correct.
so that's the brand new road that's been put in.
Yes. Well, not Kayla Marie. In the photo, that's the new Boulder Loop.
Okay,
And beyond that is Kayla Marie, which is already
Yeah,
constructed.
The street in front of this house.
because you take a big curve there at 10th, and then there's a road that goes kind of left, and then it goes around the curve and you're on 10th Street or Butte. So Kayla Marie is that road there, because then the one over here is the Boulder or Butte Road or whatever.
Yeah, Kayla Marie dead ends at the end of the UGP.
Okay.
And so most on the west side, most of the properties are already developed, and you can see in the photo, most of the Kayla Marie houses are built. And the few properties that don't have homes on them are the properties with the wetland. And so this code change affects those properties the most because they have the most potential for development. And then on the east side of this boundary, you can see on the map with the contour lines, those are some pretty large parcels. There's a lot of potential for some development, especially along Highway 99. The issue, or not the issue, but the reason, one of the reasons why those properties haven't been developed is like, well, some of them do have churches and larger buildings on them, but there's also $3.6 million worth of infrastructure improvements that are necessary to annex these properties and develop them to urban standards. And right now, the Butte protection limits those properties to being built to single-family homes, basically. And if we're making an investment of $3.6 million, it has to pencil out. And there's been a lot of interest in the state to provide infrastructure money for housing, for multifamily housing, for workforce housing, a mix of housing. And so I'm kind of speculating that a bunch of single-family homes on Highway 99 won't pencil, but if it's a mix of single-family, duplexes, multifamily, things like that, then that might be a good strategy. And there are plenty of barriers to building above 18 feet tall. I mean, the cost of materials are very high, and this is just an attempt to peel back one restriction.
I heard quite a bit, and I want to confirm what I'm understanding. So you're trying to shrink the Butte boundary line so that we can build on some of that property that is available currently. Have we got any interest in any developers willing to foot the bill for some of that, 3.6 million?
No.
Is that not prudent to maybe put it out to developers or give them an option, or do we have to invest that kind of money before we can gather or obtain that information to see if it's worth it? I mean, it seems risky to me to move forward on this in a sense of we spend the money and the time, but do we even have anybody willing to, help out with the costs or developers to develop?
Yeah, that's a great question, Councilor Smith. A lot of our parcels in Creswell are purely developer funded.
Okay.
And because these parcels have sat at vacant, partially vacant levels since they've been included in the growth boundary. To me, that's evidence that these parcels will not develop to urban standards without a government investment. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the city. I'm kind of envisioning a state-led grant, yeah.
Kind of what she's been trying to do is get more, Oregon's trying to get more money for us to try and find more affordable housing. My concern is, another concern is Creswell is a single-family town, and I want to keep it that way. I'm not a fan of apartment buildings, and I think that's a little far out. I know Creswell's not that big a town, but it's a little far out for the schools, and to navigate through the train that comes, it seems like every morning at 8 o'clock, we're trying to get the kids to school. So I understand what you're doing, and I like it, but ultimately, if it's gonna be for a giant apartment complex, I'm not for it at all.
Yeah, I hear your concern. I'm also working on an economic opportunities plan for the city, and we're finding that the wages that Creswell pays are about $40,000, and the average household income is $70,000. And a lot of that's because a lot of our jobs available are retail, and a lot of people who live here work in other places with higher paying jobs, and we like our retail services, and if we want our retail services to be successful, having some sort of housing opportunity is important. And again, yeah, Michelle?
I was just going to say, you might want to think about, too, some of the housing opportunities that are available for seniors. It may not be that we do a lot of housing that's for families in apartments, but maybe single seniors to make it a place that they can actually retire. Right now, it's too expensive for anyone who, spent their life here to retire here. And they're actually staying in houses that are way too big for them. So there's some cottage cluster that might be a lot of fun to see. And I think that's very manageable for a senior. And some of those kind of, maybe a higher density, but not up kind of things.
I'm open to that idea. I'm not getting the impression that's what we're leading with, and I'm also getting the impression we're not sure what we're leading with it either. So I just don't know how far we want to go before we're, I understand what you guys are trying to do, and I applaud the effort. I just don't want to go too far before we get some guidance from everybody else.
And we have a moratorium, so we're not going to be building any apartment complexes for at least 7 or 8 years.
And this amendment change wouldn't guarantee anything, it just makes it possible to have a different mix of housing. And I think it's just important to remember that infrastructure maintenance is really expensive, and if you have 10 houses on a 1,000-meter sewer line, that is a lot more expensive, compared to a 50-unit complex.
I got a business mind up for sure, checks and balances, and it's all about return on investment. And I'm for affordable housing obviously. I want people to be successful. I don't want to push the issue for affordable housing, if it doesn't match what the city's already currently has. And like I said, I'm against McDonald's. I don't know that we need that, but my opinions.
And most of our developers are still choosing single-family homes. That's the tested model. That's
well, they make more money that way. The city might not, but they do.
Yeah. So the city only has so many levers we can pull to encourage development.
I got one more question on the boundary too. I don't know if I saw in the pictures, so we're kind of talking more on we focus more on the south end, Kings Row, or I guess it'd be the north end of the Butte. Now, is that boundary going to extend on the opposite side as well, or are we just more focused on the southwestern sides of the boundary? Because I know they've logged the majority of that ground that is available or that would be wetland. Is that going to kind of be symmetrical boundary, or is it going to kind of wrap around what we're focused on and then kind of cut off where, I'm not sure the road that goes up the Butte, I can't remember what that's called, but is that kind of where the focus, where it stops?
It might help to look at the first page of the staff report. So you have it in your hand. So that is the proposed new boundary. Does that help answer your?
Yeah, so
This right here?
So that
No, that's
doesn't.
it right here. Exhibit A.
The little one,
Is it going?
yeah. It's
So that
exhibit A, the first page.
Down. Okay. So that doesn't go very far down Butte Road then, what I'm looking at? 'Cause
Correct, it
that would be
doesn't
the
make-
mill right there in the corner. Okay, so it is literally a smaller, okay.
Yeah, and so if you kind of flip back and forth, I think the second page has the full
Okay.
protection area,
The current one, right?
the current one.
That's where we're at now.
Okay.
The big one's current.
So you're saying west of Kayla Marie Street, going west toward Butte Road, all those parcels are already developed into houses?
Not all of them, a handful of them. There's still some parcels on Queens Avenue. And of course, all the parcels on Boulder Loop Road, on that new subdivision. And then there's also a house that's kind of off, it's just a little bit south, or a little bit downhill from the water tanks. That's on a 0.8 acre piece of land that I imagine one day we'll redevelop.
So, one of my considerations is the view of the Butte, because that's part of our current comp plan. And when I look at this one picture, I mean, personally, I'd love to do, before we take action on this, I'd love to do what you did with the planning commission, and I'd love to go for a walk with you and walk some of these neighborhoods and take a look. Because the view of the view of the Butte is very important to me. It's an iconic thing in Creswell. People love to see that. And so, to me, it's really important that we protect it as much as possible from whether it's apartment complexes or houses that want their own view and so they go way up too high. So that's an important consideration, and I would probably have a better feel of it if I was to do a walk like you did with the planning commission and see it from different angles. I know in the picture going east, as I penciled it out, Kings Row and Second Street, because I live right in here in a little cul-de-sac, and I think here you have the church, the current church that's pictured here, the Church of Christ, and then just south of that you have the care center spot, and then you have a couple of small parcels that I think already have homes on them. And so, if I'm right, I don't think the church is going to develop that, or the care center, although there's 3 parcels that front Second Street that's owned by the church, but they're all residential parcels. The church could sell that off at some point. And then they could put something up there which, depending on if we remove that from the overlay, that could be, that's plenty big enough for an apartment complex or 3 houses. And so now you're going to be blocking the view from everybody who lives on the east side of South Second Street. And then you're looking at the big parcels that are owned, 2 of them by churches and 1 by the Brock family that have a lot of land. Of course, the people whose view would be blocked would be people on the other side of Highway 99, and that's industrial. So, and then there's a comment someplace in here that the apartment complex built on Holbrook Lane just a few years ago, that is taller than 18 feet, but that's currently outside of the boundary anyways. But that definitely blocks the view for a whole bunch of people, but it's outside the boundary. So just for me, I'm not really inclined myself to want to take action on this in 3 weeks, but I would love to schedule a walk with you or with other counselors and walk through there and see it, check it out, ask more questions, kind of get some boots on the ground. That's what I'd like to do.
I think that's a great idea. Is it appropriate to do a subcommittee? I'm not really sure.
Oh, I don't know that we need a subcommittee. We can schedule as a group or schedule you. We just have to confirm with Michelle.
Yeah, I don't think a group is a good idea because we'll have to notice it.
Oh, sure.
Then we'd have a
So, yeah,
quorum.
if you have an interest, I would say go ahead and coordinate with Curtis to have a little one-on-one, and then you probably have to declare ex parte.
So how would that, declaring ex parte, what does that mean?
That means that you did some investigation on your own on the property and may have come to some opinions outside of the city council meeting.
And then how would that impact us when it comes to making a
You
decision?
just declare it.
Oh, ex parte, outside of this context. So you're comfortable with us directly contacting Curtis and saying, hey, When are you
I'd
free?
like to be CC'd on it.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just my own take. But we need to keep this open to council to your questions or your input.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I feel very similar. What I'm balancing right now in my head is kind of okay, so how do we help grow the city, but also how do we help protect the butte and the view of the butte? And as I look at the two maps, right, in terms of like what is the proposed new view protection area versus what is the current, I actually see that it's just a lot smaller. And so I'm thinking about, again, what is that spirit, right, of that view protection area and what do we want to do? And I think me actually going and walking and physically putting eyes on, right, what that would be, I think that would be really helpful for me and help inform kind of how I'm feeling and how I feel, again, how I'm balancing just the spirit of the view protection area and kind of the growth of the city. That would be helpful.
And I also wanted to share a map. So today I was making a map for Sheriff's Beldridge, and I came across, Caitlin, do you need one? This old comprehensive map, and it actually has the butte even a smaller. So that's just an old map, but it has the butte being completely outside of the urban growth boundary except for where the water tanks are. And so I think it's interesting that I think we have an opportunity to define where does the butte start. And I think it's open to a decision.
I think one other piece that would be really helpful for me to think about as well, and I don't know that we necessarily have this, but for any of those buildings that are over that 18 feet, or even just like well above the 18 feet, when were they constructed? So that we know kind of like how many buildings would be part of kind of being grandfathered in, right, to that, like not needing to be less than 18 feet.
I know that I lived off of Queens Row for a while in a 2-story house. Right there. Now I'm sitting here going, how'd that happen?
Yeah.
It's a relatively new house,
Yep.
right next to the church.
When was the code adopted that is now the butte overlay?
I know it was revisited in 2014 or 2015,
Maddie did.
because I think there was the rule that the butte must be protected, but there wasn't an actual defined boundary in the development code. That's what I came across.
So Maddie defined it.
I believe so.
2014.
And so when we are talking about the view, and that we're trying to protect it, as I look at the map, if you go west of the butte, off Butte Road, literally that's all now Camden County property. So we're not trying to preserve the view that
You
direction.
can't.
When you go east, once you get to Highway 99, that's all either industrial or that's county as well. So we're not really trying to protect the view east that much.
Well, the blue area is in the city. The problem is it has no infrastructure. So the likelihood of it being developed is very low.
'Cause I could see.
And it's very expensive to put that infrastructure in and probably will not be in our lifetime.
Is this 240,000 an acre to develop accurate to current estimates?
It was from, it's from less than 2 years ago.
Okay.
But that assumes that, I mean, there's really no infrastructure. There's no main line past Bald Knob.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of main line you have to run down Highway
All that
99,
by 99
which
be a
is
lot
owned by
more.
ODOT, which is, it's gonna be it have to be a really good reason to do that. We have a lot of other areas where we'd rather
Makes
run
more sense.
first.
And just so
This
it's,
is low value.
sorry, just so it's on the record, it's not the entirety of the east side, but it's kind of like where the tail starts.
Sure. Kind of pan out.
There's, I think, 4 or 5 properties.
I think an average 2-story home is like 25 feet. Too. So
Yeah, just
there's quite a few 2-story homes that would have to be grandfathered in.
And again, so like the height is measured from the top of the hillside at the midpoint of the roof, so A two-story home isn't that out of place on the butte, but a three-story home would be very tall.
The property that's immediately adjacent to Rainette Hughes Park is a really nice piece of property, and it's vacant. And I've had my eye on that property off and on for years because I'd love the city to own it. But I know that they're holding it for a price that would be a developer's price. So that park probably will be developed at some point with the passing of the current property owner. Her children want to sell it and make money off of it soon. So that's probably one of the most vulnerable areas. I don't know if it would be a bigger moneymaker for apartment complexes or single-family residential. So,
Is that the property that is, sorry, is that the property that is south?
the nice grassland, yeah, that's south of the park.
Okay.
Yeah.
South of the Baptist
That's
Church.
Robinette Hughes right now.
Yeah.
Right here.
Thinking of that one right
Yeah,
there.
I would love to have that for fields, but they want millions of dollars for it. They want developer prices for
Want
it.
more than the other.
Alonzo?
Yes, that's probably the primest spot if this footprint here was reduced, which is, I'm guessing, like 50% or so is what you're reducing this down to. I mean, it's quite a bit. I'm not sure how I feel about this, you know, as if we're really trying to protect the view of the butte. And the reason I asked for the minutes was because when I first saw this, I thought, man, I wonder what the public outcry is going to be about this. Well, there was none. There was none whatsoever during that public hearing. And I know we have another one coming up here, right? Is there not going to be another public hearing on this?
It'll probably be pushed out.
At the council meeting, I think, down the road, there'll be another one. And as I recall, it was a year or two ago, there was, I believe it was Bill Spencer was trying to do some work on some property there in a home, and he was doing something right there at the bottom of the butte there. And there was quite a few people that were very upset about that and came to speak about it and so forth. So anyway, I guess what, I wonder if maybe the community just needs to hear about this a little bit more. I would really like to allow them the opportunity to see what we're doing here with this. I'm not really for it or against it at this time. I just like to learn a little bit more about it, because it just seems to be it's a little concerning if you look at this, and it's shrunk down a lot. And yes, I'm really concerned about that lot next to the church. That would be a prime location. It would really ease the development if this was changed for that property. So,
It would give it a lot more options.
yeah.
And that's close enough. I mean, we already have South Second Street that runs past the care center, so there's already infrastructure there close.
Right, it's in the street, Second Street.
And that'd be a prime place you could put in apartment complexes. You could put in residential, single-family, and complex. There's a lot of land there.
Yeah, mixed development, Mike.
And they would need to be paying parks SDCs, wouldn't they? Because at one time we talked about that land as a possible park, and we had conversations, but what they wanted was way too much.
How big is that lot size that we're talking about?
It's big.
I must be looking wrong.
pretty good size.
It's right
It's several lots altogether that are undeveloped.
right here. So there's the care center, there's the
Okay.
church, there's the Baptist church. That right here is the new pocket park.
Okay.
It would be beautiful for soccer fields and
Sure.
baseball fields, football
Right, am I
fields.
correct there?
Yeah, it's about 2.5 acres.
Because I was looking.
And that's what the current owner wants to see. But her children
That's-
have
there's
a say and they
church.
don't.
It's this whole property.
Okay, that one right there.
Property.
And during
It's
the-
all that,
During
That's
the,
only-
Now-
only 2.5
I'll wait till
acres.
then.
the whole thing.
Yeah. Right, I'm only guessing, that, it says it's only 2.5 acre tax lot, correct?
It's,
So, it seems like it's,
well, I'm thinking of the whole area that goes all the way to the Nazarene Church. That's several tax lots.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that looks like.
I'd love
that
to get
was-
my hands on all that property.
and to the 99, where the home is, imagine they would get that too.
Yeah, the house,
Yeah,
house
the
would be part
one
of it.
further south of that is another 3.4
Yeah.
acres, so yeah, if you got both of those.
Yeah, I think
Significant.
it's a good chunk of land, yeah. And it's all contiguous and it's all bare.
Well, like the mayor was saying, Second Street's right there, so if you could get that land, that does make sense to tie in. Makes more financial sense to tie in there, and there's already apartments and schools and churches, and it's close to the bakery and walking, so.
Yeah.
And just one more question or thoughts. And this would also help us to fulfill our strategic plan, correct? As far as expanding some more housing for, and what about actually expanding the urban growth boundary rather than, trying to get a little more this way? Is that?
Yeah, Curtis has been working on that, and it's complicated because the directions that we go are really limited by a lot of factors, including wetlands, including farmlands, and things like that.
Yeah, and so we have a housing needs analysis that assumes we're short about 50 acres of housing land. And right now, these parcels are assumed to be buildable. And so it's a phantom capacity. And so we're losing about 10 acres of land because from all practical senses, they're unserviceable right now.
Sure, absolutely.
And so that's,
And I like that word phantom, because even if we do this, it doesn't mean that people are just gonna jump on this, take advantage of this layer that's been removed.
I think Manager Amberg said this too, I think it's likely that nothing will happen for a long time.
So is any of this land wetlands?
No. Yes, sorry, there's one that's just south of Second Street Park. It's in that vicinity.
The south of Second Street? Because south of Second Street is the Brock
Yeah.
portion and then the Nazarene Church.
It's on a church property.
Backside of the
I think
Nazarene Church, only one.
I think it's
It
a
might
little.
be the Four Square Church.
Four Square
Yes,
Church?
that's the one, yeah.
Okay.
That's the one.
Two churches. So, you mentioned a resident who has a plot here that's on wetlands and wanted to go up 2 stories because the buildable land was smaller. Where is that located on this map?
The far west, it's the property that's kind of shaped.
Is it west of Taylor Marie or?
Can you see Ruby Claire on the map? I'll point to you.
No, Ruby Claire's not on here.
It's,
So, this is Butte here. So Ruby Claire is right here?
so the 3 parcels that are adjacent to Butte Road, 1, 2, 3, those all have
There's Ruby
wetlands.
Clear right there. This is just a basic hunting
Oh, this
habitat.
helps me. This
Yeah,
helps
so
me.
those 2, those larger ones.
So this is Kayla Marie. Oh, there's Ruby Clear. Now I have it. So this map here this map changes this to where Kayla Marie.
Mhm.
So these houses, so only these parcels here would be allowed to go up higher. And the view would only be blocked by people who live west of that, and that's across Butte Road. That's the county.
So the
So
initial.
right in here. Okay.
The initial project idea was for those properties, and then we thought,
Yeah,
well,
that
we're
makes
looking
I think
at
that
the
puts them
boundary.
outside the
That's,
580
yeah,
line.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah.
This bold line.
Yeah.
That puts them on the outside of it.
Yep, okay, that makes more sense. So not much on the west side, but the east side is where we have a lot of land.
Yeah, because we followed the 580 contour line.
Right.
And just right outside of the 580 contour line is where you could potentially be the most blockage of Butte, correct?
yeah,
If someone decided,
course.
hey, I'm right outside that 580, I can go two-story or whatever, and then they would be, then you would be blocking for sure, somewhat. That's your most
And there's not
potential
much
for
land,
blockage.
there's not much land right outside because
No,
it's owned
no.
by a church and a care center, and it's pretty,
Now, one last question. Now, is it just a rumor that the lot that we just spoke of next to the Baptist church, is there wetlands in there, wetland mitigation that would have to be taken care of in that lot?
no.
Or is that just a rumor that I heard?
I'm not sure I know which lot.
The one that is just
broad.
south of the New Hope Baptist Church.
No, he said it's the Faith Center. It's the
Okay.
next one over.
That's the Brock one. There's your church, that's the Brock one.
It's the next
one
That's
over.
the church. That would be the one.
Okay,
Yeah.
That would make sense if it had a wetland back in here.
okay, that's where, all right.
And leaving, if we did nothing and left it as it is, we're not stopping the Brocks selling to a developer. It's just that they would have to be under our 18-foot limit. So they could still sell and put all kinds of houses there that went up that 18 foot. But, or cottages, like you said, or whatever they wanted to do, just that they couldn't go above 18 feet. So they could still develop it, it's just that we're saying you can't go above 18 feet.
Yeah, in my opinion, this isn't a critical amendment. I think it's strategic.
I agree.
Well, and you know, once you build on land, most likely it's a done deal and you're not gonna tear it down and do something different. And so once you potentially block a view, you've blocked a view. So any other questions or comments, Clark? You've been silent over there?
I'm trying to determine exactly where I'm falling on this. It's to some level against it, and I don't know that I can really speak to it at the moment. I like the idea of looking around, taking a walk one-on-one, and just seeing the area, but it just seems, I don't know, it's just not hitting the right things for me. I can't really explain it further than that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Shelley?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I also, and as I often do, I'm also looking back at the mission statement that's on the back of the wall, and I'm kind of thinking about kind of creating a safe, livable, attractive community with a unique small-town atmosphere, and so I'm just kind of thinking about that piece of our mission statement as well, and, right, so safe, like affordable, right, like those are the words that are still sitting with me, and I think just need to marinate and probably take a walk, and, I don't know that I would be ready to make a decision on this in 3 weeks.
I feel like I just want to preserve the character of Creswell, and I'm not sure, and the Butte as well, and it just feels like it's moving in the wrong direction, and I would definitely love to have more homes and a place for our retail workers to be able to stay. I don't see this as the way right now. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty far into it, that's all.
And I'm open to being creative. This doesn't have to be the boundary line, and no action needs to be taken, of course. I think Highway 99 is a great spot for workforce housing. That's what we see on North Mill Street too.
So the other thing I noticed in here is not only maximum height, but currently manufactured home parks are not allowed in this. So that if we changed it, then we would possibly be allowing manufactured home parks to go in, which along Highway 99, some of those properties could be ideal for a manufactured home park. They're flat, got access.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. A lot of this depends on what we'll pencil out infrastructure-wise, and manufactured home parts don't necessarily have a high return on investment. So, just looking into my crystal ball, I think it's unlikely, but it could be wrong.
That's something that the state is noticing, is that they're losing a lot of traction on being affordable. And so actually they're looking to different types of construction that might be more affordable in the long run than a manufactured home. Manufactured homes have a lot of issues as well that, when it comes to disaster preparedness and safety, there's some huge losses we've had in manufactured homes in the last few years. The state's concerned about.
So it sounds like I'm hearing that we don't want this on the agenda for 3 weeks from now, and that we'd like the opportunity to make connections with Curtis and go for a walk and observe it ourselves, and please CC Manager Amberg on that. Do we want it back on the work session for June? Council, what do you want to do? Do you want to put it back on for another work session in June? Do you want to put it back on a work session in July? Where we are scheduled to not have a work session in August. Is there any kind of time framework that's pushing this that needs to happen sooner rather than later? Michelle or Curtis?
I was just going to ask, was this 100% recommended by the entire planning commission?
Yeah, two were absent, but it was unanimous.
Unanimous. It might be good to invite the planning commission to come and talk to you and give you their point of view on why they decided to do this. I think they have a valid point of view as well.
I think that's an excellent idea.
So it would have to be a date that maybe the planning commission, we would want to,
We could have a joint meeting for a single topic.
we could.
Or
We
do it-
could do a special meeting for a single topic, or we could just have them come and be in the audience and provide insights. I don't know that you would get the whole planning commission. I mean, I have to look at Curtis to know what he thinks about this idea. This is the first time I've talked to him about it, so.
I'm sure we get the ones that are passionate about it, so ideally that would be the ones we'd want to hear from that really have an idea or a plan in their head to give us some perspective from what they're thinking.
So here's a thought. Why don't Manager Amber and Alonzo and I look at our schedules for June and July? I don't think either work session is really packed at this point, but we need to look at that. And then communicate with Curtis. And the two of you then can try to work out a June or July work session that we could invite them to come to and participate with us on this. And prior to then, you're all encouraged to contact Curtis and have a little walk. Does that sound like a good plan?
We've had some beautiful weather.
We have.
Okay, well, thank you all.
Okay, any last questions for Curtis or comments? I just proposed something. Does that idea fly with you?
That works for me, I like it.
Yes, I think it's a great idea, and maybe if we advertise this, maybe perhaps it will give us an opportunity for the community or the public to come and comment as well.
And if the budget passes with the scientific surveys thing, this could be one of our very first surveys, possibly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that would be a wonderful way to find out from our community, because I dare say all of our community likes to look at the Butte and might have all kinds of wonderful input for us. Just a thought.
I have one question.
Yes.
Slightly off topic. When was that mission statement defined?
Well, it was either in 2013, the first year I became mayor, or I actually think it was probably sometime before then, but probably the only one in this room who might have an answer might be Manager Humble. Do you know when that mission statement was created by the city?
Was that a collective of the council or the city staff, or?
Well, so see, again, we have to look back. If that was created by the council, then it would have been created in 2015 when we did our first strategic plan when I was mayor. If it was created before then I can't answer that.
I was here in 2014 and it was already there.
Okay.
And there was a big, strong push to embrace it and have it put on the wall. So we put it on the wall downstairs, and we put it on the wall upstairs.
And we did a strategic plan with Stan Biles, I think prior to when you came,
It
but
has-
it didn't, I don't think it emerged at that point. It would have emerged either later or earlier.
It was before I came, but we did do Dan's when I was here. But he did one before too, I think. But each time it's been reviewed and it's been, once again, embraced by city council.
Yeah.
And city council is the one who continues to embrace it and promote it.
I was curious where his origin happened and who was it? You know, Counselor Clark has referred to it many times, so just some homework I've never done before, so I'm asking right now. It's a perfect opportunity.
It's something that you could look at next time you do a strategic plan. You can update it because they always ask, just need
Yeah.
updating.
Yeah. And I don't know how we find the answer. I suppose we could talk to Roberta.
Yeah, Roberta might be the
Roberta
only
might
person
know.
who might know.
Laylee might know.
Yeah, she's not really
Yeah.
friendly.
So don't ask her.
Good question. Okay.
I was just gonna say, one other thing that I like about kind of putting a pause on it is that I think that this gives an opportunity for Councilor Osborne and Councilor Holt also to be part of the conversation and be able to weigh in, especially before the next city council meeting, or, you know, they'd have that time.
So, does everybody know that who owns the Butte? Do you know the history of the Butte? The Butte was purchased by two people, the Hales, because they wanted to preserve it. They do not own the whole Butte. However, they do own a great deal of it. Part of what they did was they put it into a perpetual wildland easement that is managed by the McKinsey Watershed Council. So it's not even our local watershed council that does it. However, they have strong relationships. And Riley is very active in maintaining the Butte and doing the work up there. And right now they're doing some burning and they're trying to bring back the white oak woodland that was on the Butte.
Yeah.
And when the fire chief went up there to take a look at the berries, he was kind of concerned about how overgrown the trees are on the Butte.
Do a little thing.
He was more
Okay.
concerned, I think, about the trees than the berries.
Okay, anything else for tonight? Thank you very much, Curtis.
Thank you, Curtis.
We are adjourned. We will be back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, right?
Correct.
I hope so.
See you tomorrow night at 6.
She sent the invite for the public safety. I thought it was agreeing to
We used to smoke like a chimney.
I start
That's where I got my.
Oh, okay, good.
and then we elect